Akses dan jarak tempuh dari Bandara Internasional Soekarno-Hatta menuju kampus atau sebaliknya dapat ditempuh dengan waktu hanya 15 menit. Akses dari pusat pemerintahan dan pusat pelayanan masyarakat Kota Tangerang hanya 7 menit. Akses perjalanan melalui tol Jakarta-Merak sangat dekat, dapat ditempuh hanya dalam waktu 5 menit. Raharja berdiri pada tahun 1994 dengan nama LPPK Raharja. Di tahun 1999, LPPK Raharja berkembang menjadi Amik Raharja Informatika dan setelah mengantongi izin dari Mendikbud, Amik Raharja Informatika memiliki 3 program studi, yaitu Diploma 1, Diploma 2, dan Diploma 3. Setelah Amik Raharja Informatika, pada tahun 2001 terwujudlah STEMIK Raharja. Dan di tahun 2019, perguruan tinggi Raharja telah resmi menjadi Universitas Raharja. Manajemen Universitas Raharja yang dimotori oleh Dr. P.W. Sunari MSc berduet dengan Dr. Insinyur Untung Raharja MTI MM telah meraih banyak prestasi. Di antaranya, Universitas Raharja telah mendapat akreditasi unggul dari BAN PT yang disusul dengan sertifikasi ISO 9001-2015. Untuk memenuhi kebutuhan para lulusan internal dan masyarakat umum, pada tahun 2012, Universitas Raharja mendapat izin operasional untuk strata 2 Magister Teknik Informatika dan menjadi satu-satunya program studi Magister Teknik Informatika di Banten yang telah mendapat akreditasi unggul. Dan di
Telkom University berada di Bandung dalam kawasan 50 hektar, terdiri dari 7 fakultas dan 34 program studi. Saat ini memiliki lebih dari 30.000 mahasiswa dan lebih dari 50.000 alumni yang tersebar di lebih dari 30 negara. Masuk dalam klaster mandiri untuk bidang penelitian dan menjadi perguruan tinggi dengan manajemen inovasi terbaik dan dinobatkan menjadi PTS terbaik di Indonesia serta mendapat apresiasi dari Times Higher Education World University Ranking.
Tentunya ungkapan rasa syukur dan ucapan terima kasih untuk seluruh sivitas akademika Telkom University atas capaian prestasi tersebut. Namun, kita harus terus melangkah melakukan continuous quality improvement sehingga kita terus menjadi lebih baik dalam berkontribusi untuk bangsa Indonesia.
Medan is the capital city of Indonesia province of North Sumatra. It is the largest city in Sumatra and the 5th most populous city proper in Indonesia, with 2016 estimated population at 2.2 million within the city limits. The Medan metropolitan area is home to 4.6 million people, making it the 5th most populous metropolitan area in the country and the largest outside of Java. Established in July 1996 as a one-year integrated computer and English program with the name Potensi Utama by Hajah Nuryandi BA as the founder. Location in Medan, Indonesia, and not long after, in 2003, Potensi Utama changed the form into STEMIC with 3 majors. In 2014, STEMIC Potensi Utama changed its form into university that we know today as the University of Potensi Utama, or UPU for short.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The University of Potensi Utama has a motto, "We present to educate the people." Our goals will become an excellent university in 2035. on the science and technology at the national and international levels.
Icic Ganesha, the purple campus, the winning campus. Nowadays, practical and ready for work education is very important in order to support the government in their fulfillment of working fields program. A competence-based higher education is one of the solutions in developing a much advanced and independent in Indonesia. The quality of human resource depends on the education system and a good design of curriculum based on the future demands of working fields in many advanced and modern areas of business and industry. Located in the center of Bandung, West Java, Indonesia, Icic Ganesha, also known as the Purple Campus, the winning campus, is committed to deliver the best quality of education. It is proven by our experience of running campuses all over Indonesia with more than 15,000 students. We also run vocation schools and hospitals, hotels, and other business units under the Icic Ganesha Group.
As the president of Icic Ganesha Consortium, we are very pleased that many people are success and useful for the others.
We
Kamu lulusan mana sih? Lama banget kerjanya.
Ada apa ini?
Biasa Pak, Jimmy. Kerjanya nggak kayak Adi yang alumni S1 Nusa Mandiri.
Saya juga alumni Nusa Mandiri loh. S2, Magister ilmu komputer. Oke, kalian kerja yang benar ya?
Jadi sarjana Nusa Mandiri tempat.
Jangan sampai ribetnya prosedur daftar kuliah bikin kamu jadi malas. Tinggal download dan install aplikasi PMB Nusa Mandiri di HP-mu dan semua urusan kuliahmu beres deh. Yuk, daftarkan dirimu di Nusa Mandiri. Jadi sarjana Nusa Mandiri tempatnya.
Selamat datang di kampus Elak.
Expert loyal active nasionalis gentle.
I'm feeling alive, I'm feeling the rush, so energized, nothing standing in my way. I'm feeling the beat of my heart. I'm feeling the spark, I'm feeling the flame, lights up the dark, now I'm shining like the stars. It's something that I crave. I'm feeling so alive, like I'm on a sugar high. You can't stop me even if you try. I'm feeling so alive, like I'm on a roller coaster ride. Got my hands up and I ain't stopping tonight. I'm feeling the clouds come down to earth. I'm floating around, laughing so hard that it hurts. It's just one of those.
Institut Sains dan Bisnis ISB Atmaluhur merupakan perguruan tinggi pionir dan terdepan dalam penyelenggaraan pendidikan tinggi di bidang teknologi, informasi dan komunikasi, serta bisnis digital di Provinsi Kepulauan Bangka Belitung, yang beralamat di Jalan Jenderal Sudirman, Kelurahan Selindung, Kecamatan Gabek, Kota Pangkal Pinang, Kepulauan Bangka Belitung. ISB Atmaluhur didirikan oleh Bapak Dr. Andes Jaitun HS, pendiri dan pembina Yayasan Atmaluhur Pangkal Pinang, yang didirikan pada tanggal 27 Juni tahun 2000. Institut Sains dan Bisnis ISB Atmaluhur berdiri tahun 2020 dan merupakan pengembangan bentuk dari Sekolah Tinggi Manajemen Informatika dan Komputer STMIK Atmaluhur yang berdiri sejak tahun 2009. STMIK Atmaluhur juga merupakan pengembangan bentuk dari Akademi Manajemen Informatika dan Komputer AMIK Atmaluhur yang berdiri pada tahun 2001. Sedangkan AMIK Atmaluhur merupakan pengembangan dari Lembaga Kursus Komputer LPK Atmaluhur yang sebelumnya bernama LPK Budi Luhur, berdiri pada tahun 1991. Dengan moto kampus kompetensi yang telah dicanangkan Institut Sains dan Bisnis ISB Atmaluhur, terus berupaya meningkatkan kualitas sumber daya manusia dosen dan karyawan, infrastruktur, laboratorium bahasa, laboratorium komputer, perpustakaan, serta kurikulum. Visi
Pusaka abadi nan jaya.
welcome to the 5th ICIC Apticom 2020 virtual event to you all. This conference is being held online because of the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic. The 5th ICIC Apticom 2020 raises the theme towards Smart Society 5.0 through accelerating digital transformation using pervasive technology in Industrial Revolution 4.0. With presenting two main speakers, namely Professor Dr. Abdul Wahab Abdul Rahman from Kuliah of Information and Communication Technology, International Islamic University, Malaysia, and Professor Dwi Hendratmo Widiantoro from the School of Electrical and Informatics Engineering, Bandung Institute of Technology. Let us welcome the Master of Ceremony, Mr. Zainal Abidin and Mrs. Martinda Intan Permatahati.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to ICIC 2020. Before we begin, I will read the guidelines for our conference today. The first one, for presenters, please make sure that you already rename your Zoom ID with your paper ID underscore your name. Once again, your paper ID underscore your name. And the second one, do not send this conference Zoom meeting link to anybody who has not registered to this conference, since we are going to remove uninvited attendees.
The third one, if you have any question during the presentations, you can use the chat room feature. You have to mention your identity, your institutions, and to whom you are addressing your questions. Some questions will then be read out in the Q&A part of the sessions and answered live by the speakers.
The fourth one, in the discussion session, participants who want to give the questions directly to the speakers, you can use the raise hand feature so the committee can unmute your microphone.
The five ones, during the plenary sessions, only the speakers or panelists who speak to give the presentations. This is intended to minimize noise distractions when the discussions takes place.
The last attendees have to fulfill the questionnaire as an obligation to get your e-certificate. The questionnaire will be given in the middle of the conference. Therefore, you need to stay tuned and do not skip the presentations.
That's all the ground rule for this conference. ICIC 2020 is part of Apticom National Meeting Programs. We want to thank all our sponsor and co-hosts without whom we would not be able to put this event together. We would like to thank our generous sponsor for supporting these events, our gold sponsor, Emurgo and Oracle, and our bronze sponsor, LSP Informatica.
We also would like to sincerely thank you to our main co-hosts, Universitas Bina Sarana Informatika, Universitas Gunadarma, STIMIK Nusa Mandiri, Institut Teknologi dan Bisnis di Bali, Universitas Komputer Indonesia Bandung, Telkom University, Binus University, Politeknik Diksi Ganesha, Universitas Dianuswantoro.
Next, we would like to thank you for our supporting co-hosts, Universitas Raharja, Universitas Budi Luhur, Universitas Potensi Utama, Universitas Parahyangan, Universitas Pasundan, and STTB Bandung. Ladies and gentlemen, now let us bow our head and pray together. Before we begin the conference, pray begin. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, now let's begin the 5th International Conference on Informatics and Computing Information 2020 with the themes toward digital economy sovereignty through empowering artificial intelligence in Industry 4.0.
The Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to me to inform you that among us here, we have the Honorable, the General Chair of Apticum, Professor Insinyur Zainal Arifin Hasibuan, MLS PhD, and also all of the Executive Board of Apticum. And please give a warm welcome to our keynote speakers, the Honorable Professor Abdul Wahab Abdurrahman from International Islamic University, Malaysia, the Honorable Professor Dwi Hendratmo Widiantoro from Bandung Institute of Technology, Indonesia. And on behalf of Apticom, we would like to give a warm welcome to all of the participants from all around the world.
To begin the conference, I would like to request to all participants to sit properly. Let us sing the national anthem of Indonesia, Indonesia Raya. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The next agenda is the committee chair's report. For Dr. Yusuf Abdurrahman, the time is all yours.
Test. You can hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you, Pak. Okay, to Honorable Chairman of Apticom, Prof. Ucok Zainal Hasibuan, to Honorable Chairman of Rakornas 2020 and General Secretary Sekjen Apticom, Prof. Aben Ahmad Beni Mutiara, to Honorable and distinguished keynote speakers, Prof. Abdul Wahab Abdurrahman from Faculty ICT, International Islamic University, and Prof. Dwi from ITB, Bandung Institute of Technology, and to all presenters and participants of ICIC 2020. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and very good morning. As organizing chair, allow me to do some report related to the conference. The ICIC 2020 is the 5th annual conference which has been started from the first conference in the year of 2016 in the beautiful islands Lombok, Mataram City. The ICIC is the conference in the general area of computer science, computer engineering, information system, information science, and information technology areas. The output of the conference has been published. The output of the framework conference has been published in IEEE Export of Digital Library, which is indexed in major indexes, Scopus, and Web of Science. Initially, the ICIC 2020 will be held in the last October, offline in the beautiful city of Gorontalo. However, due to the pandemic COVID-19, after getting approval from the IEEE SQ, this conference has been rescheduled in this November, today and by tomorrow, 3rd and 4th November 2020 by virtual conference. and it is a part of the annual conference meeting Rakornas of Apticom, which has been officially opened and launched yesterday. There are 246 papers submission and only 127 papers accepted, which is around 52 acceptance rate only, means 52% only. The acceptance paper will be presented in the one of the 6 parallel and track sessions and will be published in the conference proceeding value. The committee is given 30 days after the event to submit all accepted paper and presented paper and other related documents for the inclusion in IEEE Explore in Digital Library. The diversity of the authors come from 8 different countries: Malaysia, Indonesia, Australia. Let me read it. Malaysia, Indonesia, Australia, Japan, India, Thailand, South Korea, and Uganda. Highly selected best paper after revision will be considered for the inclusion in the 3 different international Scopus journal. On behalf of the organizers, I would like to extend a warm welcome and would like to thank for all keynote speakers, reviewers, authors, and committee for all effort, guidance, contribution, and valuable support. A very big thanks for all sponsors, organizers, Morgo, and other sponsors from universities and institutions. Also to the multimedia team, Pak Oka and teams from Bina Sarana University and Nusa Mandiri. Also special thanks to the IEEE Innovation Section, which is played as a technical sponsor for this event. Finally, thank you for all organization committees, Pak Solihin, Bu Dwisa, Pak Doni, Bu Dewi, Bu Dian, Pak Didin, Bu Hani, Bu Nina, and trio of the TPC chairs from Nisar, Pak Usni, and Pak Pri, for all parallel session chairs. And to all committee members, I cannot mention your name one by one. Without you all, we are nothing. Last but not least, very big thanks to Prof. Ucok, Pak Zainal Hasibuan, Pak Sekjen, Prof. Aben, Pak Dadan, and other SQ Apticom executive members, Apticom Wilayah, and members, other parties that directly, indirectly make this event successful. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Yusuf Abdurrahman. Ladies and gentlemen, for the opening remarks, let's invite the General Chair of Apticom. Please welcome Professor Insinyur Zainal Arifin Hasibuan, MLH, PhD.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good morning to you, to all of you. This is a very delighted moment that we can gather up again in the 5th conference of ICIC 2020. We really appreciate for your participations, especially to the keynote speakers, my friends, Professor Abdul Wahab from Malaysia, and also Professor Mas Dwi from ITB. And we are very glad that you can come and participate, deliver your presentation later on in ICIC 2020. And also to all the participants, we also would like to present our big thank you to all of you. Do not hesitate to give a suggestion, critique, input to our program so we can serve you much better now and in the futures. And as we choose the topics or the themes of this year's conference in 2020, which is toward the human resources that really acquainted with artificial intelligence and purposeful technology, we are aiming and welcome the new era, especially a new normal, and everything changed and everything being disruptive. And at this moment, it's a good moment for all of us to share knowledge and experience so that we can advance our knowledge as well as our experience in our field, especially in the fields of information technology and communication, artificial intelligence, and computer science. And again, on behalf of Apticom, I would like to say a very big thank you to all of you, especially again to the keynote speakers, invited speakers, participants, and also paper presenters, and enjoy the conference, and also look forward to see you again in all activities of this event. Thank you very much, and enjoy the conference.
Thank you for the opening remarks. Now we are going to the main events. Let us invite our moderator today, Mr. Prihandoko, MIT PhD. Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy his profile video.
The moderator of the ICIC conference this time is an academic. He obtained Bachelor of Computer Science from University of Indonesia, Master of Information Technology from the University of Queensland, Australia, a PhD degree in the field of wireless communication at the University Putra, Malaysia. His research interests are in the field of artificial intelligence, information systems, data mining, machine learning, and deep learning. His current daily life is as a lecturer in the Department of Information and Information System at Gunadarma University and as Deputy Director, Doctoral Program, Gunadarma University. Let us welcome Mr. Prihandoko, MIT, PhD.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We hope all of us today in a good health and good condition. I'm very happy today. I'm very happy today to be with you in this ICIC 2020. Our conference this year is very special. Due to the pandemic COVID-19, we cannot meet each other directly or face to face, but we hope that this condition does not reduce our enthusiasm to our research and work for the progress of our nation. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have a very special moment to share and discuss with our invited speakers, distinguished guests. Let me greet Professor Abdul Wahab bin Abdul Rahman from International Islamic University of Malaysia. Assalamualaikum, good morning, Prof. Abdul Wahab. I hope you have been here. And also we have Professor Dwi Hendratma Widiantoro from Bandung Institute of Technology. Good morning, Prof. Dwi.
Good morning. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you, Prof. Dwi. Our speakers will share and discuss with us about the cutting-edge technology in the field of computer science and information technology. I hope all of you will enjoy our discussion today and get some ideas and inspirations for our research. For the first presentation, we will listen to knowledge sharing from Professor Abdul Wahab, who will deliver the talk with the title Computer Science and Mental Health through Neurophysiological Interface Framework. For those who want to ask questions, you can write it in the chat room, and I will read it after the presentation. Now, I invite Prof. Abdul Wahab to deliver the speech, and before that, let's see his video profile.
Abdul Wahab bin Abdul Rahman obtained his BSc in Telecommunication Engineering from Essex University, Colchester, England. His MSc degree in Electronic Engineering from the National University of Singapore, and his PhD degree is from Nanyang Technological University. He has been in the industry for more than 25 years, including Singapore Telecom, Texas Instruments in Singapore, and Hewlett Packard Company in Singapore and USA. He joined the academics at Nanyang Technological University of Singapore, and after his retirement with the International Islamic University of Malaysia at Gombak, he has published books and many articles in conferences and journals in areas of cognitive science and engineering, digital systems, speech, and signal processing. Let us welcome Professor Dr. Abdul Wahab Abdul Rahman.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, what I will do is I will try and have my slide shared here. Just take a moment. Okay, can everybody see the slides?
It doesn't work, Prof.
It doesn't work?
Yeah. Maybe the committee can help.
Yeah, maybe you guys have to open up for me.
Okay. Boleh bantu.
Stop.
Wait a minute, Miss.
Okay.
Okay.
Bukan.
Okay.
This is better. Huh?
Oh, gitu, Pak.
Okay, let me. Okay, what I'm going to do this morning is that. By the way, how long have I given to speak today? This morning?
30 minutes, bro.
15.
30 minutes, yes.
Oh, it's very short, huh? Okay.
Because we will have a discussion more.
Okay, fine. What I will do is that. Can you bring me to the next slide then? Okay, next slide. I will just go through this one very quickly. Next slide. Okay. I think what I want to show you here is that what is our problem statement? Our problem statement is that there is, especially in this COVID-19 situation, we found that the mental health problem has actually increased tremendously from our previous, because of either financial situation, you have to stay at home, with the family at home with you almost 24/7, you have to see them. So a lot of this mental problem is really picking up, and in fact, most of us are emotionally exhausted, So therefore, in this case, how do we detect them? How do we determine, how do we basically know what to do? But this kind of mental or emotional kind of exhaustion not only exists during COVID, but also it exists even before COVID, and it will be even worse after COVID. So what can we as engineers, computer scientists do, rather than leave it to the psychologists, to the psychiatrists? And and I know today, the number of psychologists and psychiatrists in the country, whether it is in Indonesia or in Malaysia and Singapore, we don't have that many psychologists or psychiatrists. So we really have to do something that we can help these psychologists and psychiatrists. What I'm going to show you here is that what we engineers or computer scientists can do in order to help them expedite some of this kind of analysis and analytics. Of course, I'm not going to talk about the bigger picture, the big picture of talking about big data analytics, but just focusing on what we can do as engineers, so that at least we have the first part of it. Okay. Next slide, please. I'm going to skip this. Next slide, please. After all, I only have 15 minutes. Okay. What is important is that I'm not going to basically just take a look at the whole thing from the perspective of engineering. I have to look at it from the perspective of the psychologists and psychiatrists. Most importantly, we know that the psychologist is using this thing called affective space model. This affective space model says that every emotion, every emotion, every feeling, every mood, we can actually define them in three basis functions. But here I'm going to show you only two basis function, which is the activation and the we call it the arousal and valence. The valence is where we have like unpleasant feeling, the pleasant feeling. For example, you can see from here the quadrant that I have. The top right quadrant is where we have the happy quadrant, the left top quadrant where we have the stress quadrant, and then the bottom quadrant where we have the arousal, which is negative arousal, like for example when you are calm, you are bored. So these are the kind of things that the psychologists have defined. But what is very important is how can we take all this, okay, and translate them so that we can use it for measurement. There are two different things that I want to stress in this particular case. One is speech. I've worked on speech for a long time, but then I have switched from speech into brain also in addition to it. And also the other one is your heart, because the heart is also very important, and that determines what we call cult. But for this particular keynote, I'm going to only talk about the brain and how we can actually measure the brain wave patterns, which is available using what we call the electroencephalogram or EEG device. Okay, and EEG devices previously are very expensive, but now you can get EEG devices very cheap, and a lot of these are going to be available. And so therefore I'm trying to get you engineers and computer scientists to come and join me to do a lot of this analytics as far as using this brain wave pattern analysis. Okay, next slide please. Okay, first of all, emotion. When we talk about stress, like mental sickness and so forth, it involves emotion, it involves stress, it involves, we call it the dysphoria, the DAS, DASS, which is depression, anxiety, and also stress. And these are fully defined as far as the psychologist is concerned. But how can we translate some of this information by measuring the brainwave pattern directly? And from there, we can make a better conclusion. So this is where I am introducing what we call the neurophysiological interface of effect that allows us to measure the brainwave patterns. And from the brainwave patterns, now I can have a very good idea whether this individual has stress, no stress, whatever it is, and so forth. Okay, so next slide, please. Next. Okay. Of course, in the case of the EEG, right today, there are a lot of methods that we can measure. But please, whatever it is, whoever wants to do the measurement, make sure you are trained to do the measurement. All our researchers here are quite well trained by my friend from Netherlands. He is very good in using the EEG devices. And this one here is without the cap. We use the 20 rules as far as the position of the EEG. Next, please. Okay, so the traditional way of personality assessment, I want to focus, first of all, give you some examples on how, by measuring or looking at the brainwave patterns, we are able to determine the kind of personality, okay, that this individual have. So that will give you some idea on whether this guy is somebody who can take stress, cannot take stress, and so forth. Okay, so next slide, please. So the model or the framework is based on, if you look at the top side where I have the EEG-based emotion recognition system, this is where I try to recognize the 4 different types of emotion based on the what we call the IAP. IAP is the International Affective Picture Standards. There is a standard by the psychologists that if you look at a certain picture, you should feel happy, you should feel fear, you should feel sad, or you should feel calm. So from these 4 emotions, I can now extract from what I've shown you just now, the valence and arousal for the happy, fear, sad, and calm. So from these different or 4 quadrants that I have, now I try to make the correlation between the neo-FFI. This neo-FFI is the psychological tools or instruments that they use to measure personality. For example, you have neuroticism, extroversion, openness, agreeableness, and conscientiousness. In this particular case, let's say that we want to measure about conscientiousness in the individual. So if we know that this guy is very hardworking, he's very conscientious, then therefore in this case here, maybe we can utilize him. Maybe we can understand him better through how he handles stress and so forth. Okay, so therefore there is some correlation. But later I will show you, in addition to that, we also have what we call the dysphoria measurement. We can also measure dysphoria, or in this case here, to give you some idea as far as what this guy have in terms of depression, anxiety, and stress. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the protocol that we are using. Of course, in using the EEG, we must first measure during the resting state as far as the eyes closed and eyes open. That will help us determine what are the kind of resting state this individual have. The 4 basic emotions give us the reference, and from this reference now I know that how the brainwave patterns actually behave. Okay, so therefore, if I am happy, how is my brainwave going to respond? If I am fear, how is the brainwave patterns going to respond? So in this particular case, I have a very good idea. Can you hear me or not?
Yes,
Yep.
yes, we can.
Okay. Sorry, because my image was static just now. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, can I have the next slide? Okay, so in this measurement, we actually correlate with whatever that we do as far as the, what do you call that, the new FFI together with the brainwave patterns that we have done, so that now matching can be done and we can derive a certain model, equation model, as far as what is the relationship between all these different 5 types of personality index. Okay, so can I have the next slide, please? These are some of the measurements that we have done using the brainwave pattern to extract. Actually, in this particular example, I'm using 50 subjects, but I've only shown you 12 here. And the other 24, actually, we have put aside, and we only use 24 for our analytics. In fact, this is what we have as far as our analyses are concerned. Can I have the next slide? I just want to show you the numbers there, okay? And these are the correlation of the NEO and NEOAC, the neuroticism, extroversion, openness, agreeableness, and the conscientiousness. Okay, these are the measurement from the psychological instruments. Okay, so next slide, please. Now, other than measuring from the psychological instruments that we use those numbers, we also have just 0 and 1 or +1 and -1. So whether this guy is neurotic or not, whether this guy is conscientious or not, and so forth. Okay, so at least this will give us some idea on the correlation that we wanted to do. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, for simplicity, what I have done is that I just use the statistical analysis, but you can, of course, do using AI techniques or deep learning, if you want to do that. And the output is basically the traits and also the psychological instrument results. And the input is basically all the inputs from the 19 channel of the what do you call that, the 19 channel of our EEG EEG devices, and we can make use of them through this analytics and so forth. But of course, as I mentioned earlier, it is not that straightforward. The 19 channel signals that I have from the EEG needs to be pre-processed, and other than pre-processed, I have to extract features, and from the features extraction, I can use the different method of clustering or whatever extraction that I want to do in order to do the correlation. So, but this one here, I'm just using a simple statistical correlation to show you that it can be done, and the modeling is quite interesting. Okay, can I have the next slide, please? Yes, this is the correlation that I've done. Even though I only have, or I analyze only around 24 subjects or 24 participants, you notice that as far as the neuroticism and the extroversion, I find that I can do a full analysis of it. Even for the openness, I can do it using the trait type rather than the T-score. Okay, even for the conscientiousness, I can use the trait type, and it does give me a very good error rate. In other words, error rate should be as low as possible. So in some cases, like if you look at that I have a combination. Okay, if I have a combination in this case here for the trait type, the VS, VC, and VF, it gives me 4.55 or less than 5% error rate. And so that is very, very good. In fact, I can use that in order to find what kind of extroversion and so forth this individual have. So again, for the neuroticism, I can use the T-score method and I get around 10% error, which is very good because as you know, most of the psychological instrument will have about plus minus 10 to 20% errors anyway. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the framework what we did as far as the behavior model is concerned. So that gives you some idea as far as the personality and the correlationship with the emotion, and it boils down to how you actually measure personality through emotion. Okay, that's what we are doing. Okay, so right now it has been very successful, and what I want to do is I want to actually expand it out, and if anybody is interested to participate, we can actually work together and collaborate, and we can do more work in this one here, especially to understand personality and how we can do profiling on personality. Next slide, please. In addition to that, we also did some kind of a measurement for dysphoria. Dysphoria is kind of very interesting because if you are going to use, in this case here, DAS tools or instruments from the psychology, you find that it is very, very difficult to actually measure dysphoria. Next slide, please. Yes. So in this case here, you find that like here, I have 9 subjects and I measure all of them are fairly normal. Okay, as far as the depression, anxiety, and stress, they are quite normal. But next slide, please. When I use these other instruments, we call it the NDS, okay, Niporian instruments here from the psychological perspective, you can see the results there indicate that, hey, I have subject 1, 2, which is mild, subject 3 is quite severe, and then subject 7 and subject 9 is also quite severe. And what I did was I tried to correlate this using the same technique or similar technique as far as the previous personality types of measurement. Can I have next slide, please? And I find that we can do the correlation in this one here by just looking at the negative emotion. Okay, so therefore in this case here, we found that the NPIA or neurophysiological interface of effect or framework can be used to measure DAS and also dysphoria of individual through the use of brainwave analytics. Of course, in some cases, we just use statistical analytics. We can also extend that to using deep learning and also to AI. Precursor emotion is very, very important. There is another topic on precursor emotion that we were looking at, especially in driving types of analytics. Robustness of the measurement due to non-generalization. You notice that if we are using the brainwave pattern, we cannot generalize. It is almost impossible to generalize. That is why it is very, very important for us to make use of this psychological standard emotion. That means the IAPS. IAPS is the International Affective Picture Standards. These are standards that tell us how you feel when you look at those pictures. Okay. The usefulness of the 5-factor behavior correlation is very important. Let's go to the next slide. I will show you very quickly how we make use of the NPIA to actually try and detect, in fact, autistic children right at a very, very early stage. Okay. And this one here, we are working together with Penawa Hospital down in Johor Bahru to actually try and understand, because right now they are using, after they do the analysis on the psychological instruments, they now analyze the brainwave patterns using the fMRI. Okay, but fMRIs are very expensive. It costs at least about 1,000 ringgit per scan. So by using our instruments as far as the EEG, it will be much faster and it is portable. So we can have the instruments goes to the school, and then we can basically profile the entire student in the school. So that's what we want to achieve. Next slide, please. Okay, these are some results that even during the eye open, based on our understanding of some of the analysis that has been done, okay, so if you see this particular pattern where you have an N type of pattern, okay, for the different alpha, beta, and gamma wave for the brain, you will find that in this particular case, subject A is quite normal, okay. Subject B is kind of interesting. This subject B is actually autistic children, okay? And so is subject D in this particular case. So you can see that for the subject, if the wave is actually like an N shape, then you find that this particular individual is normal. But if the U shape, then it is basically telling you that we actually have an autistic children. So therefore, in comparison, we found that, hey, both using the time domain approach and the NPIA approach that we have give a very close results. But in addition to that, can I have the next slide, please? Okay, we found that the results using the NPIA are more robust. Okay, next slide, please. There you are. In the NPIA, you can see here, it gives you a U shape. Okay, it gives you a U shape. Whereas in the time domain approach, it gives you a straight line. Okay, so therefore, but according to the ASD test, this alpha and beta from the psychological test also indicate that this particular subject C, as you can see, is actually autistic children. Okay, so therefore, in other words, the NPIA here is a very useful means because we approach through the emotion of the individual. Okay, so let's have the next slide, please. Okay, next slide. Okay, I have to rush, but if there is any other question, I will be very happy. So the comparison table gives you a very good example on how this NPIA can be used. There are a lot of analysis using the what we call the time domain approach, and we found that this particular approach using the NPIA or in interface of effect, gives you a far better approach in this case here, and it is more consistent compared to the time domain approach, where even if you look at the NIBA is the standard for ADHD measurement. I do have another work that we were doing, looking at how to analyze children with ADHD. Children with ADHD is a little bit more difficult to analyze, and in fact, our data provides a more consistent results compared to the time domain approach. Okay. Although existing time domain approach method have been used together with the alpha beta ratios, but the NPIA in this particular case proved to be much better off, okay, for that particular reason. Okay, next please. Okay, these are some of the results that I have. This is the one that we took the measurement for the children. Okay, we wanted to do it so that children at the age of preschool are able to do all this measurement, and when they go to school, at least we have a better idea of whether they have any of this learning disability, which includes autistic children, ADHD, and also dyslexic. So if any of these actually the student is suffering, then we can provide them with proper intervention, so that with that kind of intervention, we can then maybe help them to lead a better normal life in this case here. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so that's all I have as far as the 15 minutes presentation. I hope I have not exceed the time. Okay, but I would like to thank Apticom, especially Prof. Zainal, for allowing me to give this keynote speech. Sorry, I have to rush, but I am open to question if you do have any in this particular case. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Abdul Wahab. A very interesting presentation. From participants, is there any questions about this presentation? It is a very interesting topic regarding the psychological matters combining between computer science and psychology. Okay, I have some questions, Prof. If we notice that you combine the result of EEG, as long as I know, EEG is an equipment which produce the graphics. Sometimes when we go to the hospital, then we have to treat our heart, then the result is graphic. But then you combine this graphic with the data from human, from the questions, right? How do you combine this data set to be processed?
Okay, actually, the one that I'm doing right now is that I have not combined, for example, the ECG from the heart and the EEG from the brain. Okay, I have not. I just took the brainwave patterns, and in the brainwave pattern itself, there are around 19 channels. We use the 19 channel. There are also the EEG devices that goes all the way up to 64 and 128 channel. Okay, but I think that one a lot of neurosurgeon, okay, or the neurologists are doing that because they want to pinpoint, for example, if you have cancer, where the cancer is, and so forth. But in our case, a 19 channel is more than sufficient, okay, for most of the work that we are doing. So all these 19 channel, when you get the raw data, you will find that this raw data will have a lot of artifacts. Artifacts is like when you move your hand, okay, then you find that the EEG signal will suddenly have a jump. So you have to use adaptive filtering to filter off some of this artifact. Okay, for example, I have some of my PhD work, my student PhD work, that actually try to remove all these artifacts, especially when you analyze people with what do you call that, sawan, sawan. Jadi when you have the sawan, actually the brainwave pattern suddenly goes very high, and you have to get rid of them. Okay, so therefore in this case here, the most important part of the EEG is actually more on signal processing, how to remove all these artifacts and do the pre-processing. After you do all this pre-processing, now you have a clean wave. From the clean wave pattern, then you want to extract the different frequency band. One of the frequency band is what we call the gamma band. Okay, the gamma band is the delta band. The delta band is the lowest frequency band. And if you are very active, for example, your eyes is open, you are thinking, and then suddenly your delta wave is very high, it shows that actually your brain wave is deteriorating. Your brain is deteriorating. So some of your brain cell is not working, okay, and it is already dead. So therefore, you better go and see a neurologist. Okay? So, and second one, which we analyze a lot, okay, for sleep analysis. For example, you want to know about dream, you want to know about people when they go into deep sleep, then you use the delta wave. But if you want to actually analyze like what we are doing, then the alpha and beta waves become more important, because these are the active wave, and most of the executive function are using the alpha and beta wave. Okay, not many people actually look at gamma, because gamma is a higher wave. So therefore, in most of the cases, you find that the frequency band is only like 50 hertz, very, very low frequency. And yet, the brain is so powerful, we can process a lot of information because we have so many neurons. We have millions of neurons processing at the same time. So that is why it becomes very, very interesting to understand the brainwave. And we are only 19 channel. I use 19 channel for most of the analysis, and it is sufficient for me, okay, to actually analyze the three different types of learning disability. In this case here, we're talking about the autistic children, dyslexic children, and also the ADHD. Okay, so therefore, we have not done any combination, but we have done separate. In other words, using EECG. Okay, but I don't use ECG. I use the stethoscope because I prefer to look at it from the sound, the audio. So when I look at the audio, you remember this Chinese physician, they just hold your hand and then feel your heartbeat, and they can tell you, oh, Pak, ini perutnya ada masalah, Pak. So in this case here, there are a lot of information from the heart rate, that we can actually extract, not just the ECG, but also more than that. So coordination, with the, for example, in this case here, the medical practitioners, be it the traditional Chinese medicine, TCM. Okay, I think there are a lot of things that we can learn from them. Okay, or even in our own traditional types of medicine, I think we can still analyze. But so far, not many of us engineers have gone to talk to macam apa itu bomoh ya. Kalau di Indonesia itu apa dipanggil? Dukun. We have not really gone to them and find out, what are the kind of analysis or analytics so that we can actually help to process and maintain some of this information, which some of them are true, not all maybe, that we need to really.
Interesting. There are some questions from participants, Prof. Let me read some of them. From Afri Adriana Pinam Fasilkom, Faculty Computer Science, University of Indonesia. Thank you for the interesting presentation, Prof. I would like to about the condition of or trigger that was used in the study to make sure that the measurement was valid. Also, is there any implication of this study towards the mental issue that we have in this pandemic situation?
Okay, that is why I say most important in doing brain research is that if you want to generalize the brain research, in other words, if I want to generalize and know my brainwave patterns, your brainwave patterns, it is going to be impossible. I cannot do it, okay, because we cannot generalize and say that, hey, every one of the brainwave patterns will behave like this. Cannot. So in the end, all our analysis, when we try to generalize, fail. We cannot do that. So that is why in the analysis, what we do is that you notice I have a reference. I use this IAP. IAP is the International Effective Picture Standards. These are picture standards. From the picture standards that I know, whether you are Indonesian, you are Malaysian, you are German, you are, Japanese, the way you behave towards these four basic emotion of happy, fear, calm, sad, which is that four quadrant I'm telling you, okay, give us an idea of how I can extract the valence and arousal from the brainwave. Because they are standards. Then I can correlate that to the psychological instruments, or else I cannot. Okay? But if I don't have that as my basis function, if I don't have that, then I find that I cannot do a generalization. I cannot. Because no way can I generalize because I do not know how your brain behaves. And it's very different. The trigger of the brain is very, very crucial and important. Some people try to use what they call the evoke potential, but they have not been successful. They can only kind of maybe look at it from the 10% of the population. Maybe, like for example, even in Indonesia, you're talking about only in the one in Jakarta, but I cannot generalize the one in Jakarta and the one in Lombok. because the people in Lombok and the people, even the people in Jakarta has so many different mindset. So therefore, it is very, very difficult. Maybe a small kampong, a small village, itu possible. Yeah. So therefore, in this case here, it is almost impossible. I agree with you for you to generalize. So what do? That is why we actually use this neurophysiological interface of effect. Because with the fact, now I have a reference. And the other technique that I want to introduce is actually, I did some analysis, but I missed that slide, is on the children with pornographic problem. In other words, porn addiction. Actually, I worked this together with Ibu Eli. Ibu Eli, yeah. Because he has...
Eli Risman.
Yes.
Eli Risman, okay.
So actually what we did was we have some of students and then we analyze the brainwave pattern because we want to know about this porn addiction. Especially in Indonesia, at the age of 3, you allow a student to be able to use tablets, internet, and so forth. In other words, it means it is going to be a real challenge. How do you make sure that these kids are not addicted to porn? So therefore, in this case here, we measure the brainwave patterns, and then we found that, in this kind of analysis, the alpha wave, like I mentioned earlier, give us a very good idea at the frontal end here. I take the frontal end, I can measure, and I know whether he or she is addicted to porn or not. Very good. Okay. In fact, when the psychologists, when the psychiatrists and psychologists, her psychologists and psychiatrists measure, there are about 2 of the students which they detected are not addicted. But our brainwave pattern here detected as, yes, it is addicted. In fact, we re-interviewed the student again, okay, and we found that, yes, student is addicted. And in that particular case, we have to use what we call the fuzzy analysis. You see, because it is a fuzzy analysis, so therefore it's more close to human type of analysis. So therefore, in this case here, in addition to the normal analysis that you are using AI, you may have to introduce the fuzzy type of analytics, where in this case here, at least we have a more human-like type of analysis rather than the just AI alone. Fuzzy has been around for many, many years. You're talking about Jaeger and so forth, fuzzy neural network, EFAN, evolving fuzzy neural network. But none of us really pick it up and we go into deep learning. So I think the deep learning with the fuzzy neural network, okay, with the fuzzy part, will be a real challenge and a real understanding for us as far as trying to relate to the human life of analysis.
Wow. Very interesting. Deep learning with fuzzy analytics. Okay, there are 2 more questions, Prof. Wahab. From Bhargav Krishnamurti from Anna University. How much of an impact does noise have in EEG experiments, and how do you overcome this? And
Okay.
also the second question from Mam Susi, I think, is there a relationship mental health and digital well-being? Is there any relationship mental health? Okay. I think
maybe I answer the last one first.
Yeah.
I think that there are a lot of correlation of the mental health as far as the human are concerned. Okay, the human well-being. But as far as digital well-being is concerned, I'm not sure what you mean by digital well-being. But I would like to look at the digital well-being here as what we have today in terms of technology. Okay, and as you know, one of our biggest issue when we have this pandemic, that everybody has to go online. What is the biggest problem with our student? One of the biggest problem with the student is that we find a lot of cheating cases. Opportunity for student to cheat, So therefore, this one here, it is a big problem. Okay, so therefore, already one mental problem we have to handle. 2, okay, and because of that, you are to face even our kids, in school, they have to go online also. So who is now having a mental problem? the teachers, and also the parents, because the parents at home now also have mental problem because they have to cater for the kids. So I think the mental relationship to technology in this particular case is that we are not really ready, for that kind of work, because it is so abrupt that we have to use it. So by hook or by crook, everybody is using it. But that is why I think we have to allow sometimes to get used to it. Student who have to take 6 courses per semester, maybe we don't need to. Maybe at this situation only takes 3 rather than 6 or 8 courses. I mean, they are just kidding themselves, and because of that, they have to cheat, they have to copy, they have to do a lot of things. So I think that, to me, yes, as far as the digital well-being has a lot of very close relationship to mental well-being. Okay. On the issues of let me see, noise.
Noise,
Oh yes, dealing with EEG, because EEG is in microvolts. The brain wave, the electric current on the brain wave is so small that we need to amplify them. It's something like you take at a satellite. The satellite signal that you get from the satellite itself to the Earth station, and the signal is so small that you have to amplify so many times. Can you imagine? You also amplify the noise. So how do you get rid of all the noise? So this is a challenge as far as signal processing is concerned. Okay. So for those of you who are doing signal processing, yes, this is a real good challenge for you. Okay. That is why sometimes a normal filter cannot work. We have to use adaptive filtering. Okay. So a normal filtering where you just get rid, for example, I give you, when the hand move, your brainwave is going to also give a very high voltage suddenly. The 50 hertz, 50 hertz cycle from your mains is going to give you a very high voltage. So therefore, in this case here, everything is noise other than what you want to analyze. So in the first part, you find that if student do not have a proper background of signal processing, then make sure he have at least an understanding of what signals are all about before he actually embark into EEG. Because or else he will just take any signals, all the noise and whatever it is, put it into his deep learning, and in the end he gets garbage. Because all his analysis will be garbage. I think this is one of the biggest problem if we have a computer science or IT type of person who wants to analyze this, okay, and without any knowledge of signal processing. So I would like to recommend that if you want to go and pick up a little bit about signal processing, at least you have some idea what they are, and you can at least see, the signal itself. Oh, this is not the real signal. These are all garbage. So how can I get rid of those garbage? So I think that is important. So therefore, in this case here, please, if you apply AI, if you apply deep learning, whatever it is, understand what you are doing. Understand your signal, understand your input, and what are the output you expect to have. That is why it is important, and don't assume it is a black box. I'm very sure you agree with me in this case here. Correct?
Okay. Oh, very interesting. I think if we don't have any time limitation, we will listen to your explanation more and more, Prof. Wahab. Thank you very much, Prof. Wahab, with the presentation and with your high enthusiasm to answer and give explanation to us. Okay, as a token of appreciation, we would like to give a virtual plaque for Professor Abdul Wahab, and I invite Prof. Zainal Hasibuan, Prof. Ucok, to give the virtual plaque to Prof. Abdul Wahab.
Prof Ben mungkin.
Oh, Prof Ben.
Prof Ben.
Prof Ben. I invite Prof. Ahmad Beni Mutiara to give the virtual plaque to Professor Abdul Wahab. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks again. Thank you very much, Prof. Abdul Wahab, for the nice presentation. We hope that we can see you in the next presentation, in next conference, or in the next research. Thank you very much.
Inshallah.
Very fruitful presentation.
Thank you.
Professor
Okay.
Abdul, thank you very much for your presentation.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a mute. It's very interesting. This is a combination between AI and psychology field. Yeah. I think there are many research about it, and Indonesian is. I think also there are many researchers want to do that. Yes. Please, on behalf ICIC committee, I give token appreciation. Please accept our appreciation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Abdul Wahab. Hope to see you next time.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, participants. Now we come to the second presentation that will be delivered by Professor Dwi Hendratmo Widiantoro from Bandung Institute of Technology. Prof. Dwi will share with us about the product review summarization, state of the art, challenges, and opportunities. It seems that the topic is really close to our lives, yeah. Again, for those who want to ask questions, please write it in the chat room and I will read it after the presentation. Now I invite Professor Dwi to deliver the speech, and before that, let's see the video profile.
Professor Dwi Hendratmo Widiantoro is currently the faculty member at the School of Electrical Engineering and Informatics, Bandung Institute of Technology. He serves as editorial board in the Journal of ICT Research and Application, as well as in the International Journal of Electrical Engineering and Informatics. He received the MS and PhD degrees in computer science from Texas A&M University in 1999 and 2003, respectively. His research interests include machine learning, information summarization, information extraction, information classification, as well as pattern recognition. Let us welcome Professor Dwi Hendratmo Widiantoro.
Good day, everybody. It's nice being with you. I would like to thank for organizing committee for allowing me to give a keynote speech in this ICIC 2020. Okay, I'm going to share my slide presentation now. Well, as mentioned in the title, I will give a review on the product review summary session. Also, discuss about challenge and opportunity in this area. I have quite a lot of slides with limited time. I would like to go through all of these pretty quickly. So as you might have already known that currently there are rapid growth of e-commerce with so many products ranging from electronic, hotel, food, movie, service, and so on that are available and accessible from the e-commerce. And there are also many forum review. They are also available that give opinion and review from consumer about the products that already available on the internet. So there are also many popular review forum from Amazon, Opinions, also TripAdvisor, as you might already know. Okay. Okay. On review is very important for us. The study revealed that about 91% consumer regularly or occasionally read online review, and many of them trust the online review as the same as they trust with review from personal recommendations also. And maybe about more than 50%, roughly about 60% consumers going to the online review before they decide whether to buy product or not. So the role of the online review is very important here. This is not questionable about that. Oops. Okay. There are also some study that look at category that usually consumer take a look, and this shows the top of them mostly use a consumer look at the electronics, clothing, and also beauty care. That's the top three that mostly use consumer look at the review and also before they buy the product online or maybe also on the local store. So this just show the importance of this review. Okay. However, with a lot of number of review that are available online, there are also many problems because there are so many. So it's like that we are also overwhelmed with the information overload. How we can collect all the opinion? How can I read them all? Why so many review that are contradicting each other and so on and so on. So there would be a problem also with that many review online. So one of the solution to this is developing summary for these opinions, like extracting product opinion from various sources and summarize visually the statistic of every aspect of the product. That would be help user to understand more clearly about the product from many reviews. Yeah, because sometimes we cannot rely only one review. Maybe we need to have another opinion, but there are so many opinions. The summary is just the right answer for this. There are so many research questions regarding this opinion summary session, such as how we can integrate opinions from multiple sources, how can we extract opinions, how we can summarize opinionated text, or we can visualize the summary, and so on. So I'm not going to go through all of these research questions, but rather I would like to give you some overview how we can come up with the solutions about creating a summary of opinions. Okay, these are the steps that are required to generate the summary. Sorry, this. Okay, for example, we have to start with the aspect opinion extractions, and then try to categorize the aspect, and then try to determine or to identify the polarity of each opinion, and then finally we try to summarize and visualize all the statistics that we can get from the previous processes. These are basically the steps needed to generate the opinion summary, and I will go through some of these techniques. Yeah, maybe not as detailed as not very detailed, but give you an idea how various method has been try to address all of these tasks. Okay, I'm starting with aspect on opinion summary sessions. Yeah, basically there are two major methods that can be used. The first is based on frequency, appearance of particular words or keywords, and then second is based on the syntax. Let's go to the first approach. Frequency based is basically try to identify frequent features from a given opinions, which is basically usually some kind of free text, And then because the frequent features sometimes occur, the number is quite large, then we need to do some feature pruning, try to filter out those that are not quite relevant. And then we can extract the opinion word and also opinion orientations. Yeah, opinion orientation means that we try to whether this opinion is tend to be positive or negative. And finally, also we can try to get the main idea of the orientation of the sentence, whether the word sentence tend to be a positive review or a negative review. There are also a lot of methods that has been developed by approach based on syntactic. The first one is by Tony that tried to extract candidate sentiment based on post-type patterns. This is based on the premise that adjectives basically are good indicator of subjectivity, and then try to identify phrases that contain adjective and or adverbs by using part of speech tag, and then try to estimate the semantic orientation of each phrase. And this is the table shows example of the post-type pattern. If given this pattern, what we can extract from this pattern about the sentiment. Okay, then I will go to the next method based on the syntactic. This is aspect extraction phase. In this case, done by Hete. And basically, this method assumes that noun and noun phrases are most likely to be an aspect of product features. And then, similar to the previous one, it's also perform part of speech tagging to identify noun or noun phrases from the candidate aspect, and then try extract these nouns or noun phrases as a pattern knowledge. Yeah. And this is an example of the pattern, and then what we can extract from this pattern about the aspect that we are going to extract. And then another approach based on syntax is syntactic dependency templates developed by Zhuang. And this is basically use keywords to list all aspect and opinion words, and use dependency grammar graph to detect path between each aspect and opinion words. For example, this is a table that contains of the dependency relation template, and based on this template, we can abstract which one on the template that represent aspect and which one that represent opinion word. This is some of the example you can see here. Yeah. And the last one that I would give this the work by Kobayashi, that has a notion of extracting opinion tuples, and the tuples basically consist of product, aspect, and sentiments, and it uses dictionary lookup, and then try to identify aspect, and then to pair aspect and sentiment, and finally provide the opinion determinations. Okay. Okay. And these tables basically summarize many works, but this are just a few of them. I cannot show. There are actually many of them, but this is some representative of it. The method basically using bootstrapping, propagation, dependency relation, opinion lexicon, and so on. And the aspect expression can be explicit or non-implicit. Yeah. This summary what kind of aspect expression and method that you use for this task. And I would like to go more detail on the double propagations. Double propagation basically work as follow. It first it use small seed opinion word to generate aspect and sentiment words, and use apply a double propagation method to extract the other aspect and sentiment words. For example, the first it try using the same the seed to extract aspect, yeah, and then extract aspect using the extracted aspect, and then extracting sentiment words using extracted aspect, and finally extracting sentiment word using both given and extracted sentiment words. For example, we have on this picture we have seed grid, and based on this seed word, we can extract the picture as an aspect, and then knowing that picture is an aspect, we can also extract the other aspect in other sentence using the extracted feature and the extracted aspect here, which is picture. Okay. Okay. And then for the number 3, knowing that we already have several extracted aspects, we can use the extraction effect to extract sentiment words in another sentence. That's the way the method propagate from one sentence to another using these rules, and so on until all sentence that can be reached through this propagation process are extracted. However, this is a good method, but also still poses a problem, because usually in this method, the original double propagation method using only adjective opinion words as a seed set. But this has a problem because in this case, there are words such as noun, or in this case, camera, on the fifth sentence cannot be extracted because the propagation is disconnected from the rule. And in particular, to address this problem, in part of our research, we have developed what we call clue propagations. Yeah. In this case, we have a set of clues that we can use to continue the propagation process. We call it clue opinion words, clue entity expression, clue verb expression, and clue modifier. With this kind of clue, we can extract, for example, camera and bed and in the fifth sentence. Yeah. So this basically clue based on a verb and noun-based relations. Okay. Okay. The next step after extraction of the aspect is aspect categorization. It's basically identifying two or more aspect term with the same context. For example, I show here image, photo, looks. I try to identify these three different words as the same, basically the same aspect, yeah, relating to image. And another example, for example, lens, aperture, and optics, and also filter is basically these words is the same aspect relating to lens and so on. That the idea of the aspect categorization, because an aspect can be described in many different words. So we try to gather this different group of words that represent the same aspect. That's the main idea of the aspect categorization. There are also a lot of approach that has been done to address the aspect categorization, such as using dictionary, or using semi-supervised, or using the topic modeling, or using state-of-the-art technique like word to vector. Okay. For the aspect categorization based on the dictionary, this is the simple one, but it also have some cons, like it depends on the domain, and that's the main problem. And using word embedding like word to vector, yeah, this is not domain dependent. I mean, domain independent, but it need big corpus. Yeah. So there are some trade-off in this idea, but the idea of what I'm getting here is based on the fact that humans basically can determine the meaning or closeness of the orientations of words. So we must look at the content to see other words that having similar context. Okay, this shows some technique that has been developed using WordNet, yeah, the structure of WordNet with some variation. And the first one path is purely using WordNet, and the second path are involving the depth on the concept in the WordNet, and the third one is also using information content. And okay, just a little technique, some formula about how each of the formula in its approach using WordNet is developed, such as the shorter path or using WordNet MDEV, and also this technique for the similarity based on path and information content. Yeah. Next, the state-of-the-art approach for aspect categorization using word-to-fact, as some of you might already familiar with this, but word-to-factor basically try to represent each word with some feature factors. Yeah. It represents a set of factor of numbers, yeah, that has been extracted or learned from a corpus, a big corpus. And then the similarity between words can be calculated based on the closeness between these factors. That's the main idea. Okay. Then here some summarize the different type of corpus that has been used for getting the knowledge for aspect categorizations. Okay, next I go through the polarity classification. This is the third step that we need to do before we going to the summary generations. This, as I mentioned before, polarity classification, basically we try to get determine the orientation of opinion, whether this is positive, negative, or neutral. Okay, there are several approaches that has been developed for polarity classification, such as using unsupervised method, or user supervised, or even semi-supervised. And for the polarity classification for the learning using supervised, the pro is the good thing or the advantage is capture context to some extent, and basically all kinds of information can be potentially be cast as features, but it also has some cons that it depends on the quality of labels, and sometimes you have to open sufficient label for some domains. I think it's typical for supervised method that in some cases, in some domains, labels are difficult to obtain. And also, usually features considers for polarity classifications. This is some example feature that uses based on syntactic, and there are also features based on semantic that try to leverage the meaning of words. But usually, if we talk about semantic approach, it tends to be more difficult. It's more complex. And finally, I will go through the summary generation and visualization. Before this, we already get from the opinions of product review, a set of aspects and their opinions, and then category aspect, and then we already have the polarity of classifications or sentiment for each of the opinion extracted before. And finally, we need to present them as a summary and even to visualize it for easy interpretation. Okay, basically there are two main approaches, which is the traditional summarizations, and the other is based on the aspect summarizations. Based on traditional summarization, usually we have a short summary text without considering aspect and sentiments, but only try to get the most important sentence, and then we just simply use that as a summary. And using aspect-based opinion summarization, we take advantage of the process we have discussed before. We have some aspect of the review, their opinion, the polarity, and then also, yeah, of course, the statistic, because it has been collected from many review. This is an example for traditional summarizations. As you can see, we have still, it's just simply a short version of the original review that are longer. And this is an example of aspect-based summarizations. It's a kind of semi-structured data as a summary. For example, it has been identified what is the object, what is the aspect to be reviewed, and then we have the statistic for each aspect, whether how many positive or negative, and then some example of mention or statements that represent that positive or negative comments. This summarize different type of method that has been developed for the aspect-based summarization, including the traditional summarization. We have statistic-based, we have ranking-based, visual-based, rating-based, and others, particularly for the aspect-based summarization. Okay, for the time base, it looks the example looks like this. That we will see the evolution of like and dislike over time. That for the timeline based approach, and then from the statistic base, as you see before we have the count for each feature, so many positive or many negative, and some example of statement for each of the polarity. And then from the ranking base, usually we have a summary about the positive and negative, and then try to rank the importance of this summary. So it's not only be classified as positive, negative, but it also be ranked based on this importance of the summary for each summary. And for the visual base, this is the example. It's quite representative and visual instructive. We try to visualize for each aspect using diagram, and the length of this diagram depends on, for example, the statistic that we get from the extraction process. And another is based on the rating, usually provide rating. There are many rating has been developed by previous researchers. Can be based on even to like and describe is also rating, including 5 scale, 10 scale, or 100 scale. That's basically rating, like for example, like this. There are so many different rating system that has been developed by existing e-commerce. And the most popular one is the 5-star rating so far. And yeah, this is another based on the rating, but adding some additional feature, which is use helpfulness. Yeah. Information from how many review that are helpful for people or not. Yeah. How many vote for helpfulness about this review? Yeah, from many people who has read this review. This is vote about the helpfulness about the rating, whether it helps them decide the product to buy the product or not. Okay, and this is another rating based on the helpfulness. This incorporated helpfulness information into the rating. So, and finally, this is a customized opinion summary. We also determine what kind of aspect we want to show is what we need. So different people might have different preference about what kind of aspect they want to get. Then this is how user customer can personalize the summary. Okay, this is a summary for this approach of that we have discussed so far, and I want to go through briefly about the other aspects such as challenge and opportunity. The challenge is quite a lot because we try to basically extract the principle, which is object, also aspect, and sentiment, as well as opinion holder and time when it happens. That's the main idea. And then there are so many things that we need to extract, and because text is very unstructured, that's a clear challenge, but also an opportunity, of course. Okay, yeah, this is another challenge. Yeah, that some review are implicit, and this is very complex. Also, there are also fake reviews. They are meant to be fake. It's not accidentally, but the review is meant to be fake. That how we can distinguish between the fake and genuine review. That's the main problem. So, and also to deal with unstructured language, orthographic mistakes, and all those languages that is usually domain specific. That's also another challenge. Okay, this is the last challenge that I present here. Usually there are many cases they are context sensitive. For example, the definition of long could be different. It could be positive or could be negative also. For example, long battery life means positive, but long loading time means negative. That's a huge problem for if we work on many domains. Because it depends on which context, it could be positive or negative. That could be a huge challenge. Okay, and the future works, it's quite a lot. There are still many research problems in the opinion retrieval, opinion integrations, opinion spam, as well as opinion and aspect extractions, because their text is free, and so I mean there are still a lot of gaps in terms of the accuracy. So the accuracy, there are still gaps that we can still work through on this gap. And for the future work, of course, they are longer. They are a lot harder, like building an intelligent knowledge service system. Okay, that's conclude my presentation here, and I welcome for any question that you might have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the interesting presentation, Prof. Dwi. I think it is very relevant today because we have a lot of opinions from social media, from Facebook, Twitter, and etc. And do you have any research regarding the similar area, but in bahasa Indonesia, probably, because we got papers about the natural language processing like this, but most of them are in English.
Unfortunately, currently, because we are working on this kind of research with PhD students, and we turn, our most priority is in novelty, and then we work a lot on the English, not yet, but actually this is an opportunity for all of you to have research in for review in bahasa Indonesia, because there are also some challenge, but a little bit problem is because usually in bahasa Indonesia there are like a good review. Most review are very similar, like from Bukalapak, Tokopedia. The review is based on the template, so less challenging, I think, but it's also present some opportunity actually.
Yeah, with that case, that the research is, I think, is more not so hard, because our people use same sentences, same opinions in most of the marketplaces or the social media. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But we can understand that because usually the review is based on like a template. So we have a set of template that we just fill in, and yes, we know it's very we actually with undergraduate students we have been working on some review based on Bukalapak atau Tokopedia, and we found that this is very simple. That's maybe we need some way, or maybe some if there is some a good review in bahasa Indonesia, there will be a good opportunity to ask follow us.
Okay, the same question with me is from Prof. Eri Prasetyo Wibowo from Gunadarma. The second question is from Krishnamurti from Anna University. How effective is aspect-based summarization with sarcastic reviews? Because the sentiment extracted may be different from what it's meant.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. This is still a research problem. One of the main research problem. I mean, the sarcastic means something that is not meant to be. What the words say is actually has some hidden meaning, which is sometimes opposite. So this is quite a problem in the main problem in the this area. So that's the main challenge for us to handle the sarcasm. And I think in general, I mean, many method has been developed, but it's not that as effective. But for us researcher, this is a great opportunity.
Maybe we can combine some methods from visual what do you call that? User base, ranking base, rating base, statistic base, and can we combine these methods to get the more effective techniques, maybe?
Yeah, and that could be like an opportunity to have that. But I personally hasn't done a combination yet, but that could be a good opportunity to try.
There's a question from Pak Artantio Wardoyo, UGM. Pak Dwi, is it possible to take into account the background of the person, group, or political group, since the opinion always good for their group, but negative for the opposition?
Okay.
Pak Yoyo.
Basically, that is an interesting research issue. I mean, if I cannot answer, it means there is a research issue that we need to take a look. Yeah, usually, in my previous work, we assume that this review is genuine. We haven't handled yet about the sarcasm, something that tend to be fake or maybe have some different bias to some specific group. We haven't considered that, but basically, this can be another research group that you can handle if you are interested in that. You can find an example of review that can represent that kind of situation.
Okay, Prof. Benny, you want
Yeah,
to ask?
thank you,
Question?
thank you. Prof. Dwi, I think there are a new research from maybe from Facebook, or I don't know, I forget it. Uh, what do you think about GPT-3? That is more about the core. The research is more about natural language processing. Yeah, in your research also in summarization, the core may be actually natural language processing. What do you think about that? Your research in combined with GPT-3, yeah, maybe the last
Uh, okay, I cannot comment on this because it's still strange to me. I haven't read about the GPT-3. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, okay, okay. This is the research from Facebook, maybe, yeah, about Facebook, yeah. This research, I think, about how to explore about NLP, and then the machine is automatically understand what human speak, what human what write, and so on. Yeah. Uh, there's no combination about that. Your research.
Okay. In that the case, yeah, actually it will help a lot in this kind of research for the opinion submission. Basically, we tried, yeah, what we did is something that quite clear with some pattern, and but the real problem in this to understand the deep meaning of the words that can be expressed in many ways by humans. That if we can develop a method that can understand the deep meaning of every word that can be expressed by human, that would be a huge advantage from this research, because basically that's the main problem. And the approach that we do is something that currently available and easy to use by many researchers. So that would be a good advantage, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Prof. B.
Thank you, Prof. Benny. There is one question from Pak Johannes Fajar from Telkom University. Thank you, sir, for a good presentation. I want to ask, for example, if there is an opinion that says that the camera is good for taking photos, especially in good light conditions, but is not good at taking low light photos. Is it still concluded to be good? ambiguity sentences. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, with the method that I talked before, it is difficult to extract the polarity. I mean, the tendency whether this is a good or not, because there are some mixed information in that sentences. Yeah, yeah, that's including sarcasm is similar to this. The challenge is similar to this sarcasm. What I have thought is something that is tend to be don't have this kind of complete information in a series for a sentence, but I consider something that like a challenging. One of the research problem is handling this kind of situations, I think. Yeah, so this basically your question is something that, yeah, everybody in this area know this is a challenging question that not everybody not yet solve that kind of problem.
How about the new words? Because the language is growing, and new words come from time to time. So is it still possible to detect new words?
Yeah, okay. This is out of vocabulary words. Obviously, the main problem. We assume that we already know that words. So if this is new, there are usually some error. There are some learning process try to incorporate that new word into the model. But usually, yes, we can handle that. But usually, we make a mistake from the first time, and then that could be used to improve on the next modeling.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Dwi. I think we have come to the end of the session, and we cannot give applause, yeah, because by virtual we cannot give applause.
Thank you, thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Okay, as a token of appreciation, we would like to give a virtual plug for Prof. Dwi. I invite Prof. Benny to give
Okay.
plug.
Prof. Dwi,
Okay, yeah.
on behalf of ICIC committee, I would like to thank for your presentation. This is very interesting. And Prof. Dwi, your talk will give us much information about the state of the art of research in opinion summarization and the process of summarizing opinions, and finally give us the grand challenge and opportunity in opinion summarization. Prof. Dwi, on behalf ICIC committee also, I give a token appreciation. Please accept our appreciation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Dwi.
Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, dear participants, we have already come to the end of this special session. I hope you enjoyed the sharing and discussions, and you got some brightful ideas for your current or future research. Before closing the session, I would like again to thank you very much to our guest speakers, Prof. Abdul Wahab and Prof. Dwi, and also Prof. Benny. And thanks to all the participants that have already give questions and also listening to the session. And as moderator, I also apologize for any inconvenience or mistakes that are happened during the session. Thank you very much. I return back to the MC. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you very much, Prof. Abdul Wahab. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prihandoko, and also our keynote speaker for fruitful presentations. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we will take a break for about an hour for your lunch and duhur prayer. Coming up next, before we are going to have parallel sessions, please be noted that our session will start in at 1 p.m. After the break, you can proceed to your presentation room. The parallel session will be divided into 5 different online rooms. The committee will help you to join the break room. For presenter, please make sure you enter the correct room according to the schedule on your program book.
Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to say thank you for your participation on this session. After break, the registration will be opened at 12:50. Enjoy your parallel session today, and please do not forget to join us again tomorrow morning at 8:30 to have our second parallel session and the awarding of the best paper, the best presenters, and the best reviewer. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Prof. Dwi, terima kasih banyak. Oke, thank you Pak Yusuf, Bu Dwiza, Prof. Eri.
Ya, saya pamit ya Pak ya.
Matur nuwun, Prof. Dwi.
Abdul Wahab, terima
Tetap
kasih.
sehat.
Ya.
Jam berapa mau dibuka breakout-nya?
Jam 1 bukan? Oh Pak, ini akunnya beda ya kalau mau lihat session.
Gimana? Gimana Prof? Maaf.
ID meetingnya beda ya nanti ya?
ID meetingnya sama. Dan kita
sama ya, saya bisa nengok-nengok session ya.
Siap Prof. Kita akan mulai buka jam 12.30 nanti ya Prof untuk breakout-nya.
Oke.
Dan jam 1 sudah mulai untuk presentasi.
ID-nya bukan yang ini ya, bukan yang Zoom ini berarti ya?
Sama.
Sama. Sama ya?
Sama ya. Oke.
Sama.
Terima kasih banyak.
Baik Bapak Ibu, nanti untuk breakout-nya akan kita buka jam 12.30. Silakan masuk ke ruangan masing-masing sesuai dengan agenda yang ada di session book ya. Di jadwal. Nanti silakan masuk ke ruangan masing-masing.
Oke. Masih pada bertahan nih. Belum difoto tadi ya, lupa ya.
Sudah Prof, dari kami sudah Prof.
Lupa foto session tadi.
Sudah ya.
Panitanya aja ada foto session nih.
Boleh Prof, boleh. Bapak Ibu panitia mungkin
Lupa
bisa
foto session sama peserta tadi ya.
mengaktifkan videonya. Kita akan foto session.
Itu cuma kursi aja tuh.
Pak Abbas rambutnya putih-putih gitu.
Lupa
Pak
ya.
Abbas.
Bu Yuli bagus banget itunya. Gimana caranya sih bikinin dong?
Seolah-olah ada wajahnya padahal nggak ada.
Nggak, ininya gambarnya pas banget gitu. Saya dapetnya nggak pas-pas terus ya.
Dia kasih apa Mas Oka?
Ya baik Pak. Kita aktifkan dulu Pak Yusuf, ketua panitianya. Pak Yusuf, boleh dicek sudah aktif?
Ya, udah.
Oke Pak.
Ya, udah bisa. Ya.
Baik Bapak Ibu, kita
bersuara, nggak ada suara tadi.
Baik Bapak Ibu, kita coba untuk foto bersama dulu. Berikan senyum terbaiknya Bapak Ibu.
Lagi online meeting juga.
Ya. Hitungan ketiga. 3, 2, 1. Pak Doni senyumnya lebar sekali ya Pak Doni. Baik, sesi kedua, berikan senyumnya lebih lebar lagi Bapak Ibu.
Oke.
3, 2, 1.
Thank you.
Oke.
Thank you.
Terima kasih Bapak Ibu.
Terima kasih.
Kita ketemu lagi.
Ya. Pak Pri, thank you Pak Pri.
Sama-sama.
Sama-sama.
Ya.
Thank you.
Proben, terima kasih Proben. Udah kasih.
Siap juragan.
Ya, sehat Pak Yoyo.
Oh, ada Prof Yoyo ya?
Mana Pak Yoyo?
Oh, ini ada sesepuh kita ini.
Wah, ada Simbah nih. Pak D mana Pak D? Pak D Yoyo.
Baik Bapak Ibu.
Ada ya?
Keluar dulu ya, nanti masuk lagi ya.
Ya Bapak Ibu, untuk room ini tidak akan kami tutup, jadi nanti bisa langsung masuk lagi dengan ID yang sama dan password yang sama dan langsung bisa masuk ke roomnya masing-masing. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Mas Oka.
Oke, saya keluar dulu ya, mau jaga baterai handphone ini.
Silakan Pak.
Ya.
Jangan jauh-jauh keluarnya Pak Yusuf.
Ini terapi jantung nih jadwalnya siang ini.
Oh, iya. Semoga sehat.
Sama kabar Bos, ada hadir.
Pak Abbas.
Ya,
Pak Abbas.
Ini pakai laptop yang satu sambil kerja nih.
Waduh, gimana Pak Abbas? Mana kursinya kok nggak ada? Mana nih nggak lihat? Oh, itu dia.
Mukanya putih-putih gitu.
Pokoknya ada Bos. Ini sambil yang satu lagi sambil kerja nih.
Mantap.
Wah, Pak Rektor nggak perlu kerja,
Siap,
Pak Rektor.
siap.
Abbas mah udah nggak perlu kerja, kali ngalir sendiri.
Pak Abbas, ini urusan yang di pabrik lain lagi.
Justru itu di pabrik malah tinggal ngalir aja.
Aduh, sukses ya, luar biasa.
Thank you.
Ya ini jadi kangen nih, kan janjinya kita mau ke Gorontalo nih.
Itulah.
Tahun depan deh.
Tadi ada Pak Jori tadi.
Ada Pak Jori.
Ya. Pak Husni juga lagi ada di sini nih.
Oh ya.
Husni di mana-mana, di Raharja ada, di Atmaluhur ada.
Iya, dia ada di bawah tuh lagi ngurusin jurnal yang Aptikom juga.
Ya, betul.
Nah, di bawah sama Pak Untung.
Pak Untung ya.
Iya.
Mantap.
Habis badminton ya Pak Bas ya?
Iya. Wah, udah pada makan siang belum nih? Kalau di sini udah siapin makan, Mas, saya khas Tangerang.
Ayo bareng yuk.
Dikirim dong.
Ya, makan
Dikirim ya.
masing-masing.
Makan bareng online.
Ya, ini acara kita kapan lagi nih keluar?
Nunggu vaksinnya ada nih.
Jangan
pandeminya ke London.
Jangan ke India melulu lah, susah makannya di India mah. Nih. Mesti yang jauhan dikit, Bos.
Ya, ke Bangladesh
Kan
lah.
mau ke London katanya. Mau diajak ke London kan.
Kalau enggak ke apa namanya?
Ketemunya
ke kampung Prof Beni aja, ke sana ke barat, ke Eropa.
Oh, ke Jerman. Oh.
Iya, boleh.
Kan kalau ke Inggris nanti ketemu Ipkinnya sana.
Iya, saya
Inggris
mau ke
nanti.
Stadion Stuttgart, saya mau lihat itu pemain bola. Ada yang sana mau
Oh,
diambil.
itu mau beli mobil Mercedes itu mah.
Bukan bola. Sana pemain bola ada yang mau saya transfer nih buat di sini.
Mantap.
Ini kita ada jeda ya, Prof?
Iya.
Ya dulu Pak Bas.
Luar biasa.
Jam 1 mulai lagi Pak Bas.
Oh iya.
Oke.
Pak Bas kapan main badminton bareng?
Oh siap. Kemarin pelatihnya saya lawan pakai sambil duduk. Soalnya udah set pertama kasih 1, set kedua kasih 3, set ketiga udah 10-0 saya lawan sampai duduk ya. Ini
ada gambarnya hilang-hilang ya? Pak Bas gambarnya hilang-hilang.
Nih apa namanya? Apa DSP ini luar biasa nih. Aduh, kita mau banyak belajar nih.
Bisa aja Pak Bas nih.
Pak Yudi, kapan kita main badminton lagi?
Siap. Saya masih rutin Pak Bas.
Iya, ditunggu.
Seminggu
Hari
3
Sabtu
kali
atau hari
main.
apa? Yuk, saya tunggu di sini. Hari
Ayo.
Sabtu ya.
Oh, Yudi sibuk sekali nih.
Enggak,
Oh, Yudi
kalau
sibuk
Sabtu
sekali.
kita bebas dari pagi ke siang. Nah, selesai makan, selesai
Pak Yudi
main
ngurusin
kita
3.000 dosen.
biasa makan.
Pak Pri itu, ayo Pak Pri ikut.
Iya, boleh. Kalau mau nginep sini saya siapin di Novotel. Kapan mau kemari?
Ayo.
Siap.
Besok juga boleh,
Siap,
besok.
Main
Karena
badminton.
besok saya bookingin ini hari Pak Yudi. Jadi mainnya kita
Besok main badminton yuk besok.
besok kan hari Rebo. Bukan, ini kan lagi Zoom-nya di sini tempat saya.
Apa penutupan kita ngumpul di Raharja ya, kumpul yuk.
Boleh, kapan?
Penutupan Sabtu, penutupan Sabtu.
Sabtu. Wah, sangat setuju nih kalau serius bener nggak nih, Prof?
Ya.
Iya, serius.
Ayo, asal ada
Penutupan kan
masjid.
Sabtu tuh. Kita penutupan dari sana aja gitu. Soalnya dari orang sana
di sini.
Iya. Ya, ini
Kita ngumpul di sini.
Dirinya ya, Pak.
Iya, Pak ya.
Sampai makan siang, sorenya kita badminton.
Gitu ya.
4 menit lagi.
Penutupan kan sore tuh, Sabtu.
Nah, boleh. Serius nggak nih, Bro? Kalau Pak Ketua pasti mau deh. Dia sekarang dia pasti mau.
Malam minggu nginep di sana ya, Novotel ya.
Boleh. Serius? Kalau serius bener nih, saya udah siapin.
Ya. Ini kita kontak dulu ntar ya.
Kalau serius kasih kabar ya, Prof ya.
Ntar ya, beneran.
Iya, di sini ngumpul-ngumpul kita.
Mangga, selamat istirahat ya.
Ya, siap, Prof.
Ya, Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Sampai kerja ya.
Iya, sama sambil kerja nih.
Masih di badan. Sudah pensiun ya? Kapan Pak?
Jadi kita harus membuatnya sendiri. Sebagai keterangan atas kode ini, kita mengisi PPN, yaitu pajak pertambahan nilai, yang besarnya masing-masing 10%. Sebagai keterangan bahwa PPN pengeluaran adalah PPN karena perusahaan mengeluarkan barang dagang. Dalam arti barang dan PPN masukan adalah PPN karena perusahaan mengeluarkan barang. Dalam arti barang dagang yang
Ketua panitia loh dia.
Berikut tampilan pada akun list. Seperti yang kita ketahui bahwa akun list menambah, mengubah, melihat, menghapus akun yang ada. Nah, di sini adalah tampilan akun bernomor 1. Akun bernomor 1 ini biasanya adalah aset lancar dan aset tetap, atau aktif lancar dan aktif tetap. Belum mengenal akun-akun, boleh searching di internet apa saja nomor akun yang ada. Saya ketahui nomor 1 adalah akun yang bernomor pada aset. Misalnya aset lancar, yaitu kasma, kas kecil, asuransi tiba-tiba, dan lain-lain. Aktif tetap seperti mobil.
Teman-teman panitia, saya lihat sebentar ya. Mau perhitungan.
Apa tuh? Dana bos, pelaporan dana bos. Yang kita temangi datang nih. Terus ya. Kalau pelaporan dana bos lah. Penggunaan dana desa itu. Oh, kalau bos itu.
Jadi kita mengisi kas perusahaan 100 juta sebagai aset atau modal dari
Saya tadi mau ini pesen batur. Kangen nggak? Mie.
Mie-nya pasti mie instan loh. Mie instan.
Oh, aku ngaku tak smashing. Ngaku tak smashing. Enes terus.
Pak ngambil lawan anaknya toh.
Lawan.
Lawan kalau sama anaknya toh.
Oh, kalau itu tanpa nasuka seru.
Oh, Kak.
Nggak tahu gini. Plastik.
Oh, Kak.
Wasit.
Admin ICIC, halo.
Tapi nek Arka kalau Arkan demam. Kecil ya.
Halo.
Naik parektor kan.
Arifai.
Arkan.
Kenapa kas dikredit? Karena kas ini untuk membayar.
Ahmad Rifai mana ini ya? Nggak ada nih Ahmad Rifai.
Dia bentar belanja. Tak belanja.
Mana nih Ahmad Rifai? Tuh hilang.
Ada. Iya, lampunya siapa? Itu berada di dolar keluar. Dah, Mbak ya, aku lampunya dia sekarang.
Halo. Mas Rifai. Mas Ahmad Rifai. Halo. Mas Ahmad Rifai. Woi, nggak denger nih.
Ya Pak.
Gimana kabarnya?
Alhamdulillah baik Pak.
Si itu mana si siapa namanya? Agus.
Aku siapa ya Pak?
Apa? Kenapa Agus nggak kelihatan?
Nggak kelihatan.
Apa? Suaranya nggak keluar ya?
Baik Bapak Ibu yang saya hormati, room ini akan kita close dulu sebentar dalam beberapa menit ke depan dan nanti kita akan aktifkan kembali untuk menyiapkan breakout roomnya. Mohon nanti untuk Bapak Ibu untuk bisa masuk kembali sekitar 10 hingga 15 menit ke depan. Terima kasih.